present moment. The Buddha is seen in an autumn leaf. The Dharma is a floating cloud. The Sangha body is everywhere. My true home is right here. Breathing in, flowers are blooming. Breathing out, I am aware that bamboos are swaying. My mind is at peace. Breathing in, flowers are blooming. Breathing out, I am aware that bamboos are swaying. My mind is at peace. Home is right here. I was just approached for an acting role from someone in the Hollywood spectrum to be a former Buddhist monk on a faith-based dating show. So I had a call with them, and but I'm less concerned with that than opening out and widening out. And I was hoping actually that, this space can be this space, not, a dating show, but this space here and now can be an environment where we take a radically different approach to how we live, how we are. Where the silence is kind of known or recognized and in a certain way respected. But this isn't a silence of, oh, it's quiet. It's more a silence of openness to not doing what we're doing, not creating a beginning point, not creating an ending point. So, a kind of respect for non creation in the face of this capacity to create, non doing in the face of this capacity to do. And then in the doing, there's only the doing. In the not doing, there's only the not doing. There's no duality in it. There's no separation in it. There's no someone, no something, no somewhere in it. So what is this it? Well, it's everything. That this moment, as it is right here and right now, is free from having or not having. This everything is beyond having or not having. There is no having or not having in this. There is no someone or not someone in this. And this kind of practice or training is more like a process that can take place when we're more and more and more willing to surrender, almost like being a slave to our willingness to stop doing what we are doing, to not do what we could do, so that we, as seemingly separate people, can begin to be blessing, begin to be giving. So let's say you have a difficult experience with someone or a difficult situation, and it is difficult to learn the art and to practice the art of forgiving that situation, that experience, that person, that reaction, which means that you allow that to dissolve itself. It's not about fixing ourselves or fixing the situation, but more allowing it to fix itself, just in the way that it arised by itself, to allow it to disappear by its own power. And for that to happen and to experience that happening, we have to get out of our own way, or we have to step back from that habit energy. We have to step back from what we're doing or what others are doing, even in the midst of that happening. Because when we reject what others are doing, now we're trying to control, we're trying to manage. We're putting ourselves in this impossible position of controlling everything. Because what's in front of you right now is everything for you. This is everything for me. And really, this is a kind of convoluted, artistic invitation to the path, to the way, to the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, to the Mahaparami, to the great meditation masters. So in that way, it is a little bit dry, but there's actually a lot of life in the desert. There's a lot of life in our ordinariness, or in boredom, in not just music that we resonate with, but with music that we don't resonate with. There's a lot of life, not just in our ideas and constructs of the past and our possibilities for the future, but there's a lot of life now. And that life, that fullness of life, that fullness of direct experience depends on the emptiness of all things that are experienced. Meaning that whatever this is full of, all of that is impermanent. So why try to perpetuate it? Why try to build something out of it? Why try to struggle to meditate or struggle to change what we're doing? Why listen to the silence instead of listening to political discussion on YouTube or on the TV? Because what this takes is so much space. So, how can you give yourself more space? How can you give yourself more capacity to receive that's not based in you believing in something? How can you be with what you don't want to be with? How can you not be with what you want to be with? How can you become vulnerable to everything as it already is right here and right now? Without going crazy, without losing your balance? How can we find balance? So I was talking with this Hollywood casting director just before I turned on the live stream for this faith-based dating show in America. How can we build relationships through silence? How can we build relationships through not thinking? How can we build a relationship with the irrelevance of thought, the irrelevance of thoughts? So this is, in a very real sense, what that's all about. So I have to question myself, should I be teaching? Because I know that there are better teachers, or I know that my way, my process, my technology is not complete. My spiritual technology is not complete. So should I be teaching? Should I be sharing? Or am I making more problems for myself and for others? Am I misleading people? And how do we be in a way or find a way where our receiving is not transactional, where our listening is not based on what we could say, what we would say, but just in a remembering of this silent truth, this truth of silence. Just like in life, there is this secret truth of death. In health, there is this secret truth of sickness. In pleasure, there is this secret truth of pain that is unavoidable for all of us as human beings. So we want to practice meditation. We want to get enlightened. We want to go somewhere. We want to go to a temple. We want to become a monk. Maybe you could, maybe you would, maybe you will. But in the immediacy of this, there's nobody to go anywhere. There's nothing that needs to be said right now. There's nothing that needs to be done right now. And this right now is what meditation is pointing to anyway. So instead of fixating on you attending a meditation retreat or meditating or listening to a guided meditation, can you embrace the hopelessness of yourself being somewhere other than you already are? The hopelessness of having an experience other than the experience that is already. How can we crack open the eggshell of our brain, of our mind? Not when things are going well, not when things are going bad, but just in the way that things are now already. How can we crack open this habit, story, seeking, fixation, avoiding, to reveal this yoke of the immediacy of what is already, the way that it is now, and the hopelessness of it being any other way than it is now. And then not how we can contract, the ego or the self can contract around that, but how can we be an aspect of this process of giving, this boundless compassion, this boundless opening, this boundless widening out, that's not bounded by boundlessness or the bounds. Because in the immediacy of the directness of this experience as it already is, everything that is not the everything that is already not something is irrelevant. It doesn't apply. In the same way that we might think that in life death doesn't apply, or in death life doesn't apply, this is the irrelevance of life and death in immediate direct experience, where someone is just a thought. And this is said to challenge that notion of someone that is a part of this operating principle of a practice, the practice of having an identity, the practice of being someone, the practice of doing something, the practice of going somewhere, to challenge the notion that over there is possible. How can I know what's over there if I'm just here? I cannot. I can pretend to as a practice of this identity, as a practice of this self. And so, Mikkel Stapler, you have to allow the question that you're answering to be pre-answered in the directness of this experience. When we have an addiction to tobacco, when we have an addiction to caffeine, when we have an addiction to alcohol or masturbation, the problem is not that those things are happening. The problem is that you are not aware enough or keen enough to notice how often those things are not happening. How much of your identity is not bound in that. not fixated in that. This is all about, this is 100% about, in terms of this live stream and me sharing, the absence of thoughts in listening that allow real listening to take place. This willingness to give irrelevance to thoughts. It's a radical way of remembering that you and your direct experience is not thought-based, not thought-bound. Where we aren't making declarative statements about that this is that and that is this, but where we are willing to take responsibility for not thinking. Willing to be in this process, not of thinking, but of thoughts arising and thoughts disappearing without grasping onto them, without identifying with that thought. Because this technology is a lot more powerful and a lot more important than your ideas. And your capacity to listen in this environment can actually make a big impact on you in a deeper way than you can think through. That's how it seems to me. So it's not about me being the teacher and you being the student. It's more about this mutual willingness to stop. And once we have this mutual willingness to stop, then we can start listening about or communicate about stopping the stopping. The irrelevance of any word, any phrase, any thought, any idea in the wakefulness of the way that it is right now. And it is this way right now. But you can't put the way that it is into a box. You can't try to contain everything. You can't try to make everything into a thing. It's impossible. Just like to understand your own psychology or habit energies or thought processes intellectually is impossible. To control your life to not die is impossible. And maybe it's possible that that technology could exist to where the body wouldn't have to die for hundreds of years, or the technology may exist where the body could survive until death and not experience sickness. Maybe it's possible, but that possibility is by definition unfathomable. So this is a practice of stopping the trying of fathoming, stopping the trying of cognizing, stopping the trying of representing ourselves in a certain way. This is not about representing ourselves in a certain way. This is about the permission to bring up the notion of the emptiness and the wrongness of the view of self, or the view of separation, so that we can talk about it, or more communicate about it, so that we can support each other to see how seriously we want to allow that process to take place. The process of dissolving reliance upon thoughts that allows us to actually turn the attention around to see our view, the way of our viewing, the perspective of our viewing. are reviewing from the sense of a separate self, a separate identity, are reviewing from the sense that separation can even exist. Maybe, not for sure, you have to experience it to realize it or to know it or even to understand it, but maybe separation is a false principle leading to false practices that causes a lot of disharmony internally and externally and wastes a lot of energy, wastes a lot of resources. That the unpleasantness, that the addictions, that the unidealness that we go through in our human experience may be just as vital to our humanness or our opening or our deepening or our freeing as the ideal experiences, as the way that we'd like it to go. And so instead of approaching the spiritual path or the enlightenment path from this view of how can I make my mind and the situation more and more ideal, it's actually a matter of facing and opening to the unidealness of this situation, which is inclusive of all kinds of things. And that can allow us to say, wait a minute, I don't even want to deal with that. That's now I've gone from already too much to way too much to where direct experience, open minded, open hearted, open bodied listening becomes relevant again, becomes accessible again. Remember that this is not a space to make declarative statements. I am, in a certain way, teaching here. And in a certain way, this is my tribe, and I'm the elder of this tribe. This is a table. And so coming to sit at this table is not an opportunity for you to make declarative statements about what you think I'm talking about or what you think that this community is kind of interested in, but rather to make a donation, Louis M., to practice self-sacrifice, to make an offering, not to share your opinion, not to tell other people what to do. Because my ability or my like being in this zone of being a teacher or sharing teachings is because of consent with my community members. If I just go to your house and start trying to teach you, or if you just come to another place and start trying to teach people, there's a very deep core of ridiculousness in that. Especially when we don't have much experience with these topics, with this science and with this technology, with this lineage. So no one here, Louis M., has given you consent to teach, to make declarative statements on the way that things are. Whereas many people here have given me consent to do that. And also, this is my home. This is my body being shared, openly offered. So setting these boundaries and kind of creating these containers are very important, because otherwise we're just on this hippy dippy bullshit roller coaster ride of saying our opinion and singing songs and talking about non-duality and making all these statements about things that we really don't have much experience with. And then we're actually appropriating or stealing or taking the position of the teacher that hasn't been offered to us. Once again, Louis M., do not make declarative statements here in the live stream. Make a donation. If you want to make a declarative statement, put it on the back of a $50 bill or a $100 bill. We're on this Australian meditation tour, and the donations are very useful right now because paying for gas expenses, and a lot of, different people are coming together here on this trip. So it's a useful time, beneficial time. So this is not just for me to be a spiritual teacher, because that's just not my position, but to be a community builder, to be a communicator, and to be an elder, to offer cooperation, protection, communication, service, availability, accessibility to what's benefited me. I'm not expecting to see Ajahn Brahm, John, but if you make a donation, I can pass it along to the monastery, which I will visit, Ajahn Brahm's monastery, I expect to. There you go, Poppy. See, that's more aligned. So, like, coming in and saying, guilt is an illusion. Don't waste your energy on the patterns that society imposes against you. That's very inappropriate. Coming in and saying compassion, kindness, and generosity, that's very appropriate. Because I and some other members have a seat at this table because we've been practicing together. We've been making donations together. We've been listening deeply together. We've kind of met each other in different ways. So we have a seat at the table to make statements, so to speak, from our position of involvement, of self-sacrifice, of concern with. But when you just come into a place and you start making this is actually something that I've probably been attracting a lot of that because I have a lot of that in me, where I go into a place and I try to, shift the paradigm to something that I think is more appropriate. But to actually go into those spaces and to actually make a difference, you have to sacrifice yourself. You have to go there and eat the shit that's on the table, the shit that's being offered, the shit that's being passed around, the total stupid retard bullshit that everybody's eating. Now, here, this is a fine meal as far as I'm concerned, because I'm concerned with meditation and the life of a monk and serious meditation experience and community and all that kind of stuff. So this is quite a fine meal from my side. But different communities and different environments have different standards, have different focuses. They emphasize eating shit or eating dharma. They emphasize lifting up righteous ego bullshit, retard shit, and they de-emphasize like stopping and settling and listening deeply and sharing deeply. But that's what they do. So if you want to be a part of what they do, you have to eat what they're eating, in one sense or another. So the bird knows what's going on because the bird is not lost in past and future. The bird is fully aligned and fully open to the way that it is. And to even say moment by moment is a total discredit to what it actually is. Like to try and point to particles of water in the ocean. It's ridiculous. So moment by moment is a kind of ridiculous idea that helps us let go of more ridiculous ideas, like you living in the past or you living in the future. Most people can barely live now. How are they going to live in the future or live in the past? So, in my ideal meditation center, I'd have a great gaming computer, a great OLED monitor, really good mic setup, DSLR camera for my live streaming. I'd have a big screen TV, comfortable couch, maybe, it'd be like a high-rise apartment somewhere with a nice view. Got to have a bathtub in the ideal situation. Can control the climate and everything. Rooms and areas for people to come and stay if we get to that point in our, relationship. But a place like this also has a lot of value. There's no TV here. Internet is sporadic. Electricity is sporadic. And all around, there's nothing. There's no people. There's no shops. Sleep in a tent. And so, what this kind of offers is a lot of living. There's a lot of living to be done here. Whereas when we get all these things that can entertain us and make us more comfortable, have more access to distractions, we actually lose, in a sense, our access to just living. And then we lose our accent of just living. Or just being, or being receptive to listening to something that may be outside of our purview. Because contrary to Western belief, not everything is known by Western people. Growing up in the Western culture and the Western education system actually teaches you very little about other cultures and other technologies of the mind, such as the science of the mind that's not based on giving amphetamines to children who are being forced into a prison-like schooling situation. And we as Westerners need to take responsibility for that lack of experience and that lack of knowing, to be open enough to broaden our horizons to other technologies, to other sciences, to other perspectives that we don't know about and that we can't speak about. That's also what this channel is all about, sharing technology. And I'm also on my weight loss journey. Remember that you are not a teacher, you are not a leader, and that you have not been invited here. Good remembrances to have. You are not a teacher, you are not a leader, you are not an elder, and you have not been invited here. And you are not equal to me. 100% scalper. And here that's actually not said in like a political or activist terms, but more of a self and communal reflection about what we have access to and what has culturally and socially been the operating principle of the Western mind and Western communities up until now as it relates to Asian communities. So this is very concerned with Asian technology, the science, the philosophy of Buddhism, or the science and technology of cultivating thoughts, bringing thoughts down to zero, preventing further thoughts from arising, how to cut thinking off at the root, to clear out and to open out the mind field, the field of mind or the field of being. So this isn't, as much as possible, this isn't really a put on. This is kind of like primarily what my life is about. Creating the conditions for community concerned with awakening, enlightenment, which are words that have been appropriated by white retard idiots, generally, Western idiots. And so if you try to grab onto terms like that or use terms like that, those terms are basically meaningless, because there's not a background of experience, meaningful experience related to where those terms are coming from, such as being a Buddhist monk and living at monasteries for 7 years, or attending meditation retreats, or having a relationship with an elder, with a Buddhist elder, with a meditation elder, etc. Our seat at the table is as pronounced as our willingness to sacrifice ourselves when it comes to this community, this tribe. And we start at the gross, the coarse, making donations, identifying this person as a teacher, asking for help, making videos about your teacher, or making artwork, celebrating the Buddha, or whoever your teacher might be. And then we get more to the subtle of sacrificing certain activities that we do. So we start to take the precepts. We stop drinking alcohol. We stop smoking weed. We stop lying. We stop being so open with conflict-oriented speech that creates a dualism of self and other. More and more subtle to where we can actually give the blessing of the ending of thoughts, the ending of things, the ending of the ending itself. You don't come here and ask me questions. You come here to listen. Or you come here to give, not to take. There's enough takers in the world. Takers are not welcome here. Givers are welcome here. Self-sacrificers are welcome here. This is not a place where your ego is relevant. Nobody cares about your ego, about your identity. If you want to have some relevance for your ego here, you better be putting money in my pocket, or you better be putting time. And if that time is about you being able to leave comments, then that time is irrelevant to the time that's needed for you to be relevant here. Okay? I got big pockets. I'll take as much as you can give. Doesn't mean I'm going to like it, but then it's also, your giving is not about if I like it or not. I will try to endure your generosity. I will try to endure your practice of giving. If you sit here and you listen and you meditate and you try your best to be silent and to train your mind and to face your suffering, maybe you'll be the teacher pretty soon. Maybe I'll be following you. Hasn't happened yet, but that's the dream. Training students to become teachers in their own right, where I show up at the airport and you're picking me up as the teacher, but then I go down to my knees and I worship the Guru of you, because you've been training so seriously. We also have our upcoming meditation retreat in Bali, Indonesia at the beginning of December. So that's something. Lee, I took those some of those stickers off because we're going to return that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to return it. But
Their stickers are removable.
okay, yeah, I noticed they're really
Yeah,
easy to take off.
totally.
So, all right, everybody, are we reconnected? Hello, are we reconnected, everybody? Hello. So some teachings actually can be exclusionary, meaning that the teaching for one or the teaching for some may be too much for the other. And sometimes the teaching is the conditions that we're in. So we may be in very intense or dry or wet or hot or cold conditions. And then, we get burned out about the path, about the way, about our own capacity to cultivate and to develop ourselves. So we have to find some balance. Balance is one of the most important things, but you're not going to find your balance deeply unless you're willing to go off balance, out of balance. So, and it is a process. That's why we have to have a lot of patience and openness, because it's a little bit different from our like short-term investing. I'm not really a money person, so I'm not investing. I'm not imagining money-making schemes or work or anything like that. Um, like someone donated some cryptocurrency, and I was thinking about that. Well, maybe the cryptocurrency will go up, maybe it will go down. And I said, well, I better just respect the offering that that person made and receive it. So, of course, you could leave it there, but that mindset is there about, well, it could go up or whatever. And I'd rather not be involved with that, you know. And if I have some students or some people in my community that are very skillful in that, then that's great. So the equality is very dangerous. And then when you drop the equality, now the superiority and the inferiority are very dangerous. They're all based on self view, they're based on you're someone and someone else is someone, which is not what this is about. There's also some room or some tolerance given for innocence. So most people, older people, there's no claim of innocence. You've lived a corrupted, polluted, degenerate, you know, awful life. You know, that's my life, that's any adult's life, you know, any person's life, right? And so there may be more of a sharpness or a restriction for those people, like going around and saying things and doing things because, you know, there's more capacity to take responsibility when you've experienced more mistakes and successes in your journeys. Whereas for young people, they may have had less experience, less opportunity to fail, less opportunity to have success. And because of that, there's a lot more leeway, there's a lot more for me. I mean, that's how I guess that's a part of my childism work, childism advocacy work, is to emphasize that. Hussein, it's kind of to give people something to be interested in, something that's accessible to them, and then, you know, present the emptiness of that appearance. I usually don't have too much with anger. Of course, sometimes it does come up. I had a spat of anger this morning that I had to deal with inside of myself, but not too much anger generally. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much.
Cody, I'm really gonna smack the shit out of you if I saw you in real life.
Bro, what the fuck?
Nobody's
What the fuck
smacking
are you
anybody
doing?
while I'm
if you
around.
guys, if you guys,
Nobody's smacking anybody while I'm around.
no, but
Yeah.
dude,
You're like,
Nobody is smacking anybody while I'm around.
okay, I'm sorry.
Yo, Aaron, why did you send the pictures in, bro?
Wait, who was that? Yo, sorry, I'm gonna mute all the bitch.
That was Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga's getting out of control.
Okay, gotcha. Hey, what's up? Yeah, no, we were just talking, chilling. You know, learning about peptides, human growth hormone.
Full of grace, can you teach us about semen retention?
What do you want to know about semen retention?
The whole rundown.
Well, I'm going to run down my foot up your ass if you don't stop talking smart.
Are you mad?
Damn. a 6-foot guy.
Yo, Uncle Full
Yeah.
Grace, are you overweight?
Yeah. Uncle got a paddle, so I don't really want to train.
He needs to hop on Road to True Tide ASAP.
Bro, this guy needs to, like, I can't say anything because you're a mod and you would ban me for literally anything, so, but, like,
Don't
you know what I want to say.
Don't say it. Don't say it. If you disrespect him, he's a partner now for the server, so I can't really say anything legally.
How is he, wait, are you serious?
Yeah, I'm not even joking. He's actually a partner now for the server.
Bro, are you friends with Liam in real life?
Oh yeah, Full Grace, I'm so sorry you mocked me to death.
You don't know Liam?
Who's Liam?
Giant
What is that eye track full
Oh,
grace?
giant implants? Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I just always go. I don't even know his real name, bro. I just know giant implants. Giant implants
leak
would
his
actually.
name?
All I'm
Oh,
saying, guys,
Yeah.
is it's the best looks maxing is the looks maxing of your heart, of your goodness, of your generosity, of your. I mean, why have we lost these words? Why have we lost? Why have we lost the importance of patience? You don't think that patience is important in being a powerful man? You don't think that forgiveness is important in being a powerful man? Compassion and kindness?
Yo, Vicky, you better shut the fuck up. Let him talk. Let Full Grace
You
talk.
little twinks aren't mogging anybody in here. You're getting mind mogged right now.
Mind mugged? Bro, that's not a real thing. That's IQ mugged, if anything.
No, it's mind mogged. You just don't know what mind is.
Well, yeah, but
Or maybe we have different ideas. Maybe you and I have different ideas of what mind is.
Wait, Ahmed, do you got an org account? I'll follow you.
Do I have an org account? No, I just lurk, bro. Not gonna lie.
Oh, lurk. Oh, gotcha. Full of Grace, sorry, what did you say? I mean, serious, sorry, like my mic cut out.
Be good.
Be good? No, we're good people. Listen, my brother.
But you
know,
can
ever
always
since
get
they told
gooder.
me-
It doesn't matter if you're
Yeah,
good. That's just complacency, and that gets
You-
me
you
fucking
DNR'd
whipped
me, though.
and ripped up
You
inside.
DNR'd my DM, though. You
Be-
DNR'd my DM.
Exceedingly good. Once you're a little bit good, now you have to become gooder. Or your goodness is no longer good. It's just you skating on the railroads of what's already been established instead of being revolutionary.
Yeah. So, wait. I do have a genuine question. What's your opinion on sexuality? You know, like with being gay, straight, heterosexual, like into femboys, into transsexuals. Like, what's your whole thought process on that?
Lust is nothing to aggrandize or to take lightly. The worst things in this world happen relate directly to lust. Some of the worst things that human beings can do to one another relate directly to lust. So if you're allowing your lust to just be whatever you want it to be at that moment, then you're feeding the lust of the society and the world that's going to trickle down and spread out to who knows who and where knows where. Right?
Gotcha.
And inside of
Okay.
yourself, knowing how to practice sense restraint, to not do something pleasurable that you could do, and to do something unpleasurable that you feel you couldn't do, that's what the path of maxing is all about, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. But like, what if you're having consensual sex with someone, you know, to release frustration and like stress or cortisol levels?
It's just lust. It's still just lust. So it's fine if people
Well,
have that
lust is
together,
bad,
but
like,
it's not about lust being bad. It's about, it's losing your energy, it's being tired being bad. No, right? But it's not something that ideal depending on what you're working on. Like if you need to be awake and doing the things that you need to do, right? So it's the same with lust.
Yeah.
It depends on if you're working to train your mind deeply or train your mind in a shallow way. So if you're working to train your mind deeply, then you want to reduce what you described more and more so that you can
Yeah, okay.
focus.
That's fair.
But most people
It's a
don't
fair
want to
bet.
do that. Most people are not willing to do that. They have too much self. They believe too much in themselves.
Yeah, I mean,
and
it's
other
hard
people.
though. There's a lot of porn. There's a lot of porn on the computers. There's a lot of temptations. There are a lot of recreational drugs. So like, it's pretty hard nowadays.
Yeah, it's going to be hard, and it's going to get a lot harder as time goes by, especially if you're practicing NoFap, Vicky.
No fap, yeah. No, well, I think that
Yes,
so
sir.
in the Buddhism temple, like they were completely against masturbation, right?
Monks shouldn't masturbate.
like, isn't there
A
like
lot of
day where you guys
people,
all
a
have
lot of
past
people
that
should
masturbate?
know. A lot of people should know how to not do what they know how to do. As long as you know how to not do what you know how to do, then you won't have too many problems, probably, because you will have your own balance and your own situation. You're going to
Yeah.
have to go through a lot of processing of the ego and reactivity and all these things because you're getting deeper and deeper into the raw experience of your mind. And the role of the
Yeah.
teacher or someone like me is to call that out. But that's also
Yeah.
dangerous because you can be too rough, you can be too strong, and then you know it's difficult. It's very difficult. That's why consent
Yeah.
is so important. And like when I come into these kinds of servers, even though I can act a little bit fucking crazy, it's actually about creating the conditions for consent to take place.
Oh, so
From
you're
the
just like trying
leadership,
to build a
from the
character.
leadership, yeah. Because actually, my character is quite small in the scheme of things in terms of my experience. Like, I'm not thinking, okay, I'm gonna go in this server and I'm gonna be and make an impact and I'm gonna do this and do that. That's not really there. So it's just expressing energy, creating relevance, and then creating the conditions for consent so that I could share some knowledge with the people that I care about, the young people in the community.
Yeah.
Hey, don't soundboard me. Who was that, Aram?
Who was? Let me see. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me check. Yeah. Yeah. No. Okay, we got him.
All
We
right,
muted
good.
the soundboard.
Yeah. And anyways,
So
even that is not it's not about restricting play. It's just about setting boundaries and then that's a way of like sharing something itself. So it's not that that person can never speak again or that even using the soundboard was inherently bad, but it's like a way of
yeah.
communication to express boundaries to create an environment that's
Hey, who should yo? Hey, Amen, chill out, man. Chill. We're having a
also
good conversation.
also for Amen, that kind of stuff is great because there's a sweetness, there's a playfulness. He's going to be a little tough, right? And so that's cool. But the problem is when that spirals out of control, and then you can't have anything act like you're creating the
Yeah.
conditions where actual content can't take place. and
Yeah, of
and in
course.
any community, in any situation, you always want to let whatever is most contentful take place. You don't want to just completely discombobulate it because some people are too sensitive or too egoic
Shut up, bitch.
to allow that
Hey,
conversation to
who's saying
happen
that, man?
because it's reaching them.
Shut up, bitch.
Because he's being reached. Like Cody's a young man and he's being reached.
It's
That's
okay.
why
It's
he's
okay,
reaching
Paul.
back
It's
out.
okay because Cody is actually balding right now, so he needs some advice on how to be bald and accept it.
He's a young man
Well,
trying
you
to
gotta
figure out
ask.
his life. He's a young man trying to navigate himself and live a good life and make good friends and be a good guy. That's what I see in Cody. But he doesn't have
Exactly.
mentors. He
You
doesn't
don't
know
need.
what to do. So he's just fucking eating shit out of the toilet and thinks that it's gold.
I didn't have a
Wait,
father.
full of grace.
Yeah, of course.
Full
None
grace,
of
I
us
gotta
had a
ask, are you
father.
like a Buddhist monk or
None
some
of us
shit?
had a father.
He
I
used
was
to
a
be.
Buddhist monk
He
for
used to be
7
a Buddhist
years.
monk for 8 years. Oh, I thought it was 8.
Holy shit.
So
Yo,
it's like
boys,
you
I'm
get
going
a
to the
it's like
McDonald's right now.
imagine if you had to rely on a real community. Like imagine if your living situation and like your life was based on a real community, right? And then imagine if that community, you come around, you sit by the fire and you talk about things, and imagine if you had all these shallow, superficial, looks maxing dudes sitting around a fire like making faces at each other. Like how fucking full on retard, stupid, dilapidated, like broken that would be
I muted him,
for
by the way.
anything meaningful to
muted him.
take place,
Bro,
right?
he's freaking bad for it. I'm not even
So
gonna
it's
lie.
just something to
I
consider
lived in
about. But I'm not saying
I
you
lived
can't
up in
do
Catholic
that. I'm just saying it's
monastery.
something to like have in your pocket when it comes to that going on. Like
Yeah, but I would
it's
go
fine
insane.
that people are
I'm gonna be
doing
honest
that,
though.
but it's also fucking stupid as shit when it comes down to
Yeah,
it.
I know it is. I would be honestly, I would go insane being a monk because I could not do no fap. I could not do like no sex. Like that'd be unbelievably impossible for me.
Dude, that's valid as fuck, bro. I
You
was
say
studying at
hello,
Catholic priest
everybody.
for
Let's
like
see your
3
best
years.
your best
That
Mog.
shit was hard as
Let's
fuck.
see your best Mog. Mog the people on YouTube. Show them what Mogging really looks like, Stazzy.
Are you
Come on,
not watching
Stazzy.
right
Let's
now?
see
Oh
the
my
best Mog
gosh,
that you
really?
got. Your best look max. You guys are some good-looking boys, eh?
Fuck, nigga, shit, nigga, yeah, nigga.
Jay, that's not what we're doing here, okay? Please watch your
Yeah,
mouth.
nigga.
I said please watch your mouth. That's not appropriate.
Please watch your mouth for base. Yeah, shit, my bad, homie.
Fuck up, you fucking
Yo, Jay, stop speaking Ebonics, man. Just speak.
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm
like,
sorry.
we're not retarded here. Anyways, wait, full of grace. I lived on a Catholic monastery for 2 years with Benedictine monks.
Yeah.
So
That's
I
full
don't
on.
know how similar that is, but like,
Yeah,
I
it's
feel
similar.
like my only critique of Buddhism personally would be like, I think that it's like very like self-centered. Or like, I don't know if you'd consider it a religion.
Well,
I
no.
would
So
consider
this
it more
is
like a
this is one of the
philosophy.
big things, Kanive. So it's like it's having an opinion about Orthodox monks at the Orthodox monastery that you're living at when you've only been there for 2 years. Your opinion is irrelevant. It's not about discussing that. Like for that monk, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on.
I can't tell my kid
Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Let go, let go, let go, let go, let go,
Keep saying it, man.
let go.
You tripping, nigga?
So you have to know how to let go as much as you know how to hang on, and that's really difficult, you know. And this kind of teaching is it's a life and death teaching. You know, it's getting yelled at or screamed at when you're vulnerable and trying your best to practice meditation. All of my experiences in, you know, and hopefully you're trying your best. All of my experiences in like meditation retreats, even like the most quiet meditation retreats before I was a monk, after I was a monk, where there's monks and everybody's cool and everything, have been incredibly traumatic and horrible. You see what I'm saying? Like the worst experiences of my life, that I would never want to go back to that experience. Because why most people are able to live and be the way that they are, and like to skate on the shallowness of their mind, right, is because they're constantly distracting themselves. Like all this energy, that's also why people are aging quickly, because all this energy is being used to keep them from going deeper into their mind. And when you go deeper into the mind, you'll see how much suffering there is. You'll see how much problematicness there is from all this perpetuation of desire and fear and greed and frustration and non practical, complicated thinking has been going on and taking place. Now, when you don't smoke weed, when you don't get drunk, when you don't get drunk on emotional dysregulation or drunk on thoughts, then there's a lot of access to non thinking, or at least being able to give the irrelevance to non practical, complicated thinking. Nothing happens. That's the problem. So basically, you show up, and maybe there's a talk or whatever. You show up in the afternoon, you get settled in. The next morning, the retreat starts. So the retreat is primarily you're sitting still in a cross legged position and meditating. And so for the first couple days, it's like your mind that is, because you're not used to doing that. So your mind is like trying to figure it out or trying to get out of it, and it can't. So it's kind of uncomfortable, and you're just trying to keep sitting there. Then that starts to calm down because you settle into, okay, I'm doing this meditation retreat. But then your body becomes very painful because every moment you're sitting still. You've never sat still for hours and hours, day after day after day. So now, even if you have a stable, comfortable meditation position, which most people don't, your body is screaming all the time. Your whole body's in pain all the time. And now your mental reactivity is blowing up because you're in pain and you're trying to get out of pain. right? But you can't escape pain, just like you can't escape death. So that enduring pain and that being with pain instead of escaping it is like retraining and reframing your mind to be more in line with detachment, or the importance of how invalid your ego is when it comes to being in control, actually, when it comes down to it. And it will come down to it. That's why this kind of teaching is relevant for everyone, because it will come down to it. You know, that's why I was saying if you got a bunch of young men sitting around the campfire, posing as if they're models and stuff like that, on a surface level, that's fine and funny and, what people are enjoying themselves, whatever. But it will come down to it. And when you spend all that time living in that surface level way, and then it comes down to it, your head explodes. And you're lost. And not only can you not help yourself, but you can't help anyone else. And so I try to tell these people, if they're receptive enough, look, life will 100% demand your genuineness. It's existentially dangerous. It's essentially dangerous. It's essentially dangerous, right? That life will demand your genuineness. Life will demand your authenticity. Life will demand your deeper mind. And if you don't have a relationship with your deeper mind, then when that demand comes up, it's going to be full on shit and it might never end. You might spend an eternity in hell or whatever. The Christians have something right about that, at least. So what I was saying before we got disconnected, and remember, anything that you reject is something that you attach. Anything that you deny is something that you lift up. And these blocks of rejecting and denying and accepting and idealizing, these are the blocks to be dissolved by sitting upright, sitting straight, sitting strong, and trying to meditate and focusing to have as much reverence and authenticity and depth and presence as you possibly can, especially at a time like this, especially during a Dharma talk, as someone who's a student or a follower. Very, very important. Now, it's not necessarily important in the scheme of things because, we go back to that emptiness or that openness, but in terms of your relationship with the teacher, that's very, very important. And in terms of the work or the activities that the teacher is trying to do, that you may be more or less interfering with, just like you might be more or less supporting. So once again, it comes back to personal responsibility. My anger is my personal responsibility. It's nobody else's fault. That's me turning an essentially dangerous situation into an essentially helpful situation because I'm taking full responsibility for what's going on in here. The same with complicated thoughts. That's what you think about it. Oh well, so well. And that would be fair if people scrolled by and said, oh well or so well and moved on. But we tend to who do you think you are? I don't think that I'm anybody. That's my best quality. And then maybe the highest or the most important responsibility that we take is the responsibility to forgive and forget, or to renounce, or to detach. And that we don't have to like something to make use of it. That's important. That it's less important if we like or dislike something, and it's more important if we're willing and able to make use of it in the most skillful way, concerned with compassion, concerned with ending suffering, concerned with I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I am remembering. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering. I think because of the emphasis on hyper isolation or separateness as an individual, like being an individual, being separate from everyone else, we are much less of individuals than ever before as human beings. We're less individuated, but also we are the individualism that we do have is so small that we're very inflexible about how changeable that is, and then taking responsibility for that changeableness. And kind of saying, okay, this is the way that I'm going to do it. This is the way that I'm going to be. This is my teacher. This is my master. This is my path. This is the path that I've chosen. Then you have to follow that through as much as you can before maybe you find another path, a better path, hopefully. Just like with spiritual teachers. Follow a spiritual teacher as best as you can and make yourself as teachable as possible, or receive as much as you can, and then be empowered as you can by that, and then find a better teacher. Right? Be as good as you can in high school basketball, and then go to college level basketball. And then of course we find the inner teacher and all that. But all that is bullshit until you actually get into the nit and gritty and the self-sacrifice of going on a path that has a lineage and a context and a depth to it. And we may live such shallow lives when it comes to the context of Buddhism and meditation, partially because of inaccessibility, that what's deep for us is not actually deep compared to the depth of what is accessible if we cultivate more blessings and if we're more willing to self-sacrifice. So actually we were going to be leaving today, but now we're going to be going tomorrow. And you can see my students are hard at work. How hard at work are they, you ask? Are you all my students? Please, I want to teach you something. I've got something really valuable to teach you guys. Could y'all consider to make a donation today to support this work? I don't want to bother them too much. But yeah, they live around here and they hold Congress, you know, they hang out and they fucking, oh, excuse me. You know, they just sit around. They don't do nothing. They're dirty. They're stinky. They're always making noise. But in a certain way, there's a lot of love there. I don't smell. They don't seem too stinky to me, but I'm sure they do stink. I know I stink. We're not talking about Donald Trump's farts today. So we were going to do that, but then the live stream got disconnected, so we're not doing that now. Nothing like a cuppa with some milk, eh? And I'm sure that many people here have experienced this in their lives, right? But you kind of have to go through the shittiness openly and willingly to then experience the fineness of life. And if you're constantly getting caught up on if it feels shitty or if it feels fine, then your ego is more based in the way that you want it to feel rather than the way that it is. And then you can't enjoy things very deeply. You see what I'm saying there? Because you're still looking to the next thing. You can't really fully enjoy that cuppa. I'm gonna enjoy this cuppa, eh? One of the things that Wally B was kind of transmitting to me, I don't know if it was last night or the night before, but I got kind of a mentally transmitted disease. Maybe you could understand it that way. And that's what Wally B was saying about like this community here. And how he's working with this community here, and how, you know, there's such a small number of people. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's less than 100 people in this whole town, and he was talking about like working at the Children's Community Center and doing things for them, and it's just like 5 or 10 kids. And I noticed how deeply in myself there's this mentality of 100, you know, and all the activism and working for the town and like the different people there, how deep this thing in myself of a town with 100 fucking people in the middle of nowhere, fucking just get rid of it. You know what I mean? That it's not worth it. And he was like it's just his sense and how he's connected to it right now. How deeply like he was full in on just those small relationships, and just a handful of people is kind of everything in a certain way. That it doesn't need to be this big thing, like just that small thing, and connecting with that and being with that is worth the world. And that's really true, isn't it? You know? So that's something I've also got to work with, especially when it comes to the algorithm, so that, you know, as time goes by, we can do more intimate practices together. But I'm also, I think a part of doing it like this is I'm also giving myself some time and leeway for my own way to naturally deepen, you know, as I become a full adult, you know, as I go into adulthood, that I'll be more able to take on that space and that energy. Because right now, you know, I'm just coming into adulthood in a certain sense, and I'm not trying to be in a rush to like do this profound thing, because I'm gaining experience, you know. You know, way. That's a fucking cuppa, all right. It's hot. It's hot as, mate. Hot as a... Oi, oi, oi. It's hot as a lizard on a Tuesday afternoon, eh? Fucking hell. Subtle science, subtle technology. It's not coarse, you know. The mind is not coarse. Also, I just want to ask for a favor from everybody. If you could do me a favor, if you could do me a service. We've published a new video, a Monk Life Meditation vlog that I'm very proud of. And if you can make sure to watch that video, leave a like, leave a comment, really, you know, get some engagement on that video so the algorithm can pick it up and more people can come across it naturally through generosity. Because you could pay money to get, you know, you could pay money to a couple $100 and get a couple thousand views or whatever, but, and you can do that, and that is something to consider. I asked my teacher about that once, but maybe it's not the right time for anything like that. Better level up a little bit before you start putting money into it. Don't be in a hurry, eh? Oh, this is going to be a fucking cuppa to end all cuppas. All right, even better. Go back, go forth. Shake your phone around while you're watching the video. I don't know how they measure engagement. To feed the algorithm. Because it's not just to get more students or more community members or more people that are like naturally have a karmic affinity to this and what's going on here for me. Of course, most of my life is about me, right? But also for other members of the community. You know what I mean? So that's why, actually, I don't think about that kind of thing too much. Like views and stuff like that, unless it's live on the live. And slowly I'm thinking about that less as well. It takes time. Just like this cuppa takes time and it smells strong, eh? 4 tea bags. 2 from earlier. 2 from now. We better have the UHT on ready, eh? Because that otherwise that'd be a cuppa too far. I don't endorse stealing milk from mothers. The mother's milk is for them and their babies, eh? But there's a story, it's one of the oldest stories I heard about like Westerners being monks and really trying to meditate and stuff like that. And it was a story of these like novice monks or new monks that they drank a bunch of coffee and like tried to stay up meditating like all night or 2 days or something. And then they went so crazy, the person who was like this the older monk that was taking care of him had to bring him to like an institution or something, like bring him to a hospital. And that can definitely fucking happen, I'll tell you. I'm just a fucking strong fella. I got a strong mind, so I endured and I got through it, eh? I got through my mental health crisis and now I'm a spiritual teacher. Oh, I've had DMT. You know the vape. You vape DMT and you fucking you white light it, as they call. And then I've also had ayahuasca, the smokable ayahuasca, and also the drinkable ayahuasca. And I've had ayahuasca many times for spiritual purposes, and really something like ayahuasca, you can only really use that for spiritual purposes, but then do you have a strong context for spirituality in your life for that to even make sense that you're using it for spiritual purposes? What did it teach me? Well, there's no me and there's nothing that no me can have. So right? And so at the beginning, let's say, we create an environment or we create conditions to talk about the notion of that. And then we begin to believe or like empathize or have faith in the notion of that. And then we may be starting to use that kind of language, like a dharmic language, interpersonally. But that using of the dharmic language interpersonally is generally irreverent and inappropriate, because there's a certain degree of realization that is what that language is kind of coming from and referring to. So you've got to get your own slice of the pie. And there's also a case by case or a context. So you could be like, I'm thinking of Vishram or what's his name? Vishrant. I'm thinking of Vishrant, you know, because I'm going to have to try and defeat him. But there's a context. So if you're going as the guest to that dude's house or that dude's session, you'd have to be full on to do something like that, to challenge or something in that way and not just be an egoic idiot. So it's just a meeting, you see what I'm saying? And that reverence and that practicality from experience is what that language is all about. It's not about, you know, saying, hey, don't complain to me about what I did because you don't exist, even though that's fucking full on true. You see what I'm saying? So it's the place that it's absolutely true regardless of either party involved with it. And that doesn't mean that this will happen or that won't happen or anything. Everything is already, and that's inclusive of anything. I believe in non-believing. I think about not thinking. W, how's it going over there in Hawaii, Mutual? Give me a call if you can. Haven't heard from you for a while. What has your practice been today? What were you talking about? You said your name is different from people think. What people think? Aditya. Aditya.
We were like Wallaby was mentioning that some like words in the Aboriginal language can't actually be translated into English letters.
Yeah.
Like he was talking about some lizard creature where the D is more like a DTH, but you can't really spell it. So same with my name. It's spelled Aditya, but it's pronounced Aditya.
Aditya.
Aditya, yeah.
Is that right? But I've been
Yes.
saying Aditya, but it's
Yeah.
Aditya.
No, it's okay. I don't mind. But yeah, it's like
Well, I don't mind either.
So certain letters, yeah, don't fully encompass the actual way to say it.
I don't know if this is what that's about, but the Asian languages, like the Myanmar and the Vietnamese languages, it's not just sounds. It's like there's a up and a down thing.
Yeah.
You know, so that's for me. You know, I'm kind of disabled in terms of learning in a certain way. For me, it's just because I'd love to learn another language and stuff, but I can barely remember what the 5 precepts are most of the time. You know what I mean? So I don't know how I would learn another language.
Maybe with Duolingo, I've heard it's.
I
really good.
guess I don't know. I don't know. I got in big trouble for that one time because I was doing. That was a big thing actually in terms of my community building. There's this thing called Reddit Stages, and it was like you heard of Clubhouse or you heard of something like that, or like Twitter Stages. Basically, it's like you can make a big audio platform for people to ask questions and have a speaker. So they had that on Reddit, and I was getting hundreds and hundreds of people coming in, and I was answering questions and stuff. And at one point, someone asked me, you know, what the precepts are. They were trying to challenge me or something. And anyways, I couldn't just answer right offhand because I didn't remember, or it wasn't coming up. And then they made a post about this guy doesn't even know what the precepts are. This guy's, you know. So, anyways, how's your practice been today? What's your mental scope been today? Mental experience?
Well, it's been so hot that I've just kind of taken it a bit easy and just rested. And woken up now when it's a bit cooler.
That's how it is out here in the bush.
And in terms of practice, you know, I think I'm experimenting. That's the phase I'd say I'm in. And this kind of quote that's on the wall, which I've also been looking at a lot, by Uncle Kevin: "Don't rush, never rush." Kind of using that to give myself permission to not be so contracted around my practice and forceful with it. So just being out here in this space, whether I'm lying down or just sitting down, and I keep forgetting what you said to me earlier, but being with the serenity, was it?
Reflecting on
Reflecting
serenity.
on serenity.
Yeah.
Yeah, reflecting on serenity. And another thing I kind of noticed in me is I don't know if this is just how my firmware is, how I operate, but my thinking and my system is very fast. So, you know, you could label it as like a quick intellect, but to me, I feel like sometimes it's a bit of my downfall because I think so fast and I can think about things very quickly that when I observe others like yourself or even Wally B, whose whole lifestyle is living out here in the bush without internet and, you know, reflecting on that serenity the whole time for years, you guys kind of have a better sense of not being in a rush and really waiting till the moment where something needs to happen instead of me, where I often am trying to plan ahead or do something so that I can do something else after that.
Oh, hey, Ryan.
How's it? How you doing?
Yeah, everything's going okay out here. How are the Hawaiian elders doing?
The Hawaiian elders are doing good, you know, just keeping their health up, staying healthy, keeping warm, staying warm, eating good.
And what have you been getting to? You still door dashing?
Yep, still Instacarting,
Yeah.
you know, staying sober, keeping
Yeah.
my body clean. You know, for the most part, you know what I'm saying.
Well,
Still
that's
got
what
a lot.
we gotta work with for the most part before we can work with any perfect idea of ourselves, which is also what we have to get rid of. Any idea of ourselves is irrelevant for meditation or for the practice of generosity or the practice of following the precepts or the practice of listening to Dharma talks. It's irrelevant. Any idea of yourself. So that you can change your idea of yourself for the practices, and then everything else is just going on in your life that you just have to humanly take care of, and then that process can take place. So that's really what we're doing out here in the bush is this process is taking place. It's not like formally organized because we can do that, but the conditions just aren't there for that. And think how much more so just in your own life, in your own daily life. To have a formal meditation retreat on your own, it's a nice idea, but for most of us the conditions aren't there for that. And then we get back to the listening and the opening. So what conditions are here and how can we make the best use of them? And then it's a constant unfolding, contemplative stopping and re-looking, reorienting towards what's most aligned with what we're willing to do right now.
Okay. I you know what kind of jams me up is thinking about the big picture. You know, the outcome, the whole mission, the whole entire plan of everything that I have planned for my life, and that it kind of paralyzes me.
Well, this is
to
the
the
thing.
point where
This is the thing is that it can be inspiring and you're also paralyzed through the inspiration. Like me and Wally B were here getting into it about, the inspiration of activism work and community and stuff like that. And we're getting a taste of it all being here together. But that is also paralyzing just as much as you get this like depressed view or worrisome view about the overall plan of your life. When it comes down to it, death is not depressing, death is life, or death is the way that it is. So when you actually have enough authenticity and like heart to contemplate death in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's where you know that you're kind of ready to actually contemplate death, or that the heart is open enough to actually start getting into that. Because it's not actually depressing. The fact that we're all going to die is not actually depressing. It's just like law. So it's like contemplating law of the body. The law of the body is to get sick, to get through old age, to die, to be gone. So contemplating that is the uncomfortableness of that is actually, that's the richness, that's the compost, that's the mud that the lotus blooms out of. But that inspiration is also a kind of mud, but it's like it can be more of a convincing mud, like a hopeful mud. And we're finding hope or freedom from hope through being willing to be with hopelessness. Depends, because if you're in a very hopeless situation, then you take in some hope, and
you process that hopelessness so then you can get to the real hopelessness, the hopelessness of you. But first, you have to, be therapized or regulated. You have to find balance. So, generosity and precepts and listening to Dharma talks is all about balance. Then we can start talking about sacrificing our life, going into deep meaning, etc. Or
Yeah.
starting to take like more of a dharmic view of our lives, and taking refuge in that rather than it just being something that we kind of, supports us or that we have interest in.
So be more serious. Be more serious about it.
Be more serious about
You know,
be more serious about the giving. So that can also be like your seriousness about trying to visit a Buddhist temple or trying to go and meet the elders and ask if there's anything that you can do for them, or being serious about like trying to find a way to volunteer even though your day is already full. Like you will be brought to your limit no matter what. So if you can bring yourself to your limit, concerned with giving, concerned with listening, concerned with the Dharma, the Buddha, the Sangha, and finding out what that is, finding out what your limit is, and then what it's like to go beyond your limit, then it's like you're more willingly going into off-balancedness, and you're going to be more able to be balanced entirely. Because when you're going off balance unwillingly, it's kind of like, you're coming back into balance is just a reaction. Whereas when you're willingly going off balance, like over giving or over listening or over training, then it's like you see that balance is so important regardless of what you're doing. That presentness or that equanimity, that it's more important than the things that you're doing or the things that make up your idea of your life. And the precepts are a very, very important part of that. The giving is more like what you do, and the precepts are more like what you don't do. And it's very simple, 5 precepts and 8 precepts, and you try to follow the 5 precepts as often as possible. And you see if a day, every once in a while, you can stay with the 8 precepts. And that's how you create a meditation retreat for your life, is with precepts, not with trying to meditate.
okay. Understood. So would you say creating a structured routine for myself would be a form of giving, or a form of like...
No, you don't have to.
Giving.
You don't have to do that because the precepts do that for you.
Okay,
So
understood.
you want to save as much energy as possible. You want to be naturally going about your life as much as possible and allow the precepts to create structure, and then the willingness to give to create structure as well.
All right.
And
Understood.
you do have to overexert yourself. You see what I'm saying? Like you can't let the tiredness define, because generally, to be able to receive these teachings, like you have an overall general situation where you've got a place to sleep, you're not on the edge of being put out or being in an emergency, right? So use the solidity of your life to overexert yourself, and then you can come back to that solidity that's generally already there. But the reason we do that is because that solidity is also just falls apart out of nowhere. You see what I'm saying? That's the law. So, yeah, just the precepts and the willingness to give, to go and visit the meditation center, or to go and visit the elders, or to do volunteering. And if you're just thinking about that, you're going to be less thinking about consuming media or ruminating on your plan of your life, because your life and your value is only now. So that's all you can really use. But when you're thinking about the scope of your life, you're not using what you have now to help. And we should be more willing to do that, even putting ourselves in danger through that. Actually, we should be much more willing to do that, because we are in danger. of sickness, of old age, of death, of the pleasure disappearing
Understood.
and the pain appearing.
Understood.
Yeah. How about going for a swim? You go for a swim every now and again?
Yup. I just was in the ocean a couple days ago. I just got over a cold. I just kicked the flu, so I'm starting to get my energy back, and I'm doing a lot more physical work. We're digging trenches.
Oh yeah. So
Digging trenches.
So what you're doing is
shit like
not
that.
what you're doing is not trying to convert yourself to some kind of middle class white hippy dippy spiritual seeker going and paying money for meditation retreats and all and going into farting circles and things like that, right? But to bring the precepts and to bring the generosity and to bring the dharma talks and the concern with all that into digging ditches.
Okay.
Yeah. So that the digging ditches itself can become a practice of mindfulness and detachment, of just digging
Okay.
and coming back to just digging.
Okay. Yeah. That was the other day I was digging a trench, and I felt like my heart was being overly exerted. So I was taking a break, and I was standing back from what I was doing, and I was opening up. I was opening up that chest. I was opening my chest up, how you were doing the other day.
Yeah.
How you were just standing back, and you kind of relaxing your jaw and standing back and letting my heart just pump. And I was, I'm trying to work this energy out. I'm trying to work this energy out up through my body, like it's so stuck in my lower region, my
So
lower
up and
stomach
out,
region,
up and out, and also the pouring of the water. So you might get some weird looks if you're doing that in at the construction site. But when you get home, the first thing you can do when you get home and before you leave home is to do the pouring water technique, which you've seen as well, right?
With the teapot, yeah.
Well,
when
it
you're
doesn't.
doing
It
outside.
can just be a water bottle. It can just be a plastic water bottle, and then you're doing the opening up and the opening up the vision and the mind and the body out, and then you're kind of your mind is resonating with or connecting with like the feeling of the flowing out of the water. So it's like the water blessing, right? And I'm going to be publishing a video soon on the YouTube channel that's some very new teachings from that teacher that specializes in that technique, and I think it's very digestible. But you have to receive that as a incorporated in the blessing practice, rather than like trying to write it down and study it. You see what I'm saying? So that listening itself is like a practice of the pouring water or a practice of receiving and giving the blessing, rather than something that you're trying to study or like trying to follow along with. Because you won't be able to understand it if you're trying to follow along with it. But you also won't be able to understand it if you're distracted, if you're not fully with it.
Okay. Yeah, man. It's a lot of stuff is happening to me. Not to me, but it's just like a lot of things are happening for me, and the more I relax and the more I calm my mind, find myself a lot of times like with a lot of resentment, and to ease that resentment feeling, my mind goes violent. Like I start getting violent, like in my mind.
This this is this is becoming more aware of the mind. So just observe it, just aware of it. It's not good or bad, it's not right or wrong, it's not going this way or going that way. It's just becoming more aware of this processing that is happening that's not yours. Not yours to possess, not yours to control, etc. Not yours, not mine, not I. And that's why that way of blessing, like especially go out to the ocean, deserted place, deserted beach area, and bring you a couple water bottles, or just that's where you go and do the opening and the blessing practice. Let all that energy come up and out, through, out through the body and mind.
And then pour it out. Pour the bottle out.
As you're doing that, it's going to help when you connect the body mind attention or awareness to that feeling of the process of the pouring out and the flowing out. It's going to key you into the technique more. Whereas if you're just trying to do the technique without the pouring water, it's a little bit more to get a hold of. So it'll help. It's like a conveyance. It'll help convey that like way. Yeah.
Because we want it out. We don't want it. We don't want
out.
It in.
When you constrict around the meditation, that's more like an expression of generosity. But the blessing practice is like a relieving of the self. It's more wisdom oriented. So that's the higher way, higher method. But if you don't take some like practical seriousness, just like when you have to dig a ditch, to doing the good deeds or keeping with the precepts, then that may be less accessible to you. And anyways, you're going to be having to go through the unideal situation of life and the body and the mind. So you might as well incorporate these good things into that are concerned with this higher practice, this releasing out, this giving out, rather than just, I got to dig this ditch so I can have a place to stay. And then in the midst of all that, be as normal, be as ordinary as you naturally are. You don't have to put anything on. It doesn't have to be you're becoming a spiritual person or whatever. It's just like these ingredients that you're adding to the meal of your life. Totally normal in that sense. There's no like normal versus spiritual in it. That's why the blessing is kind of the higher practice, because when you're sitting there and like trying to meditate, or you're focusing on the precepts, or you're worrying about doing good deeds or not doing good deeds, that's where there's this constriction. But the giving, the blessing is just release, and learning to release and to give and to open, out. So you're doing good. So just keep doubling down and tripling down and keep the ordinariness of it. Let the not idealness of the situation that you're going through be fine. And have some kind of faith that there's more support than you can imagine for taking care of your basic needs in your concern with this way. Have faith in that. That's what I have faith in. That's what everybody should have faith in here. If it gets to that point where it's, this is probably a little bit spoiling, but if it gets to that point where it's you in the homeless shelter, or you in this situation or that situation, the Sangha is here to support you. The community is here to support you, and that is how robust the Sangha is. But there's no idealism in it. So that's just to maybe give some faith and give some flexibility about the willingness to go about it that way. To really give a lot to that. And not be concerned about how much you give to that. because you're making yourself more supportable. And life isn't ideal anyway. So you don't have to worry about the ideal situation coming about because death, sickness, old age are already for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna double down, I'm gonna triple down.
Yeah.
I got that.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Rob.
Yeah.
Enjoy your retreat, bro. Keep doing what you're doing, bro.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate it. And what was your name again? Remind me.
Ryan Souza.
Ryan. That's right. I said that when you picked up, right?
Yeah, no, you did. Yeah, you did.
So that's just kind of how it goes. All right, brother. You take care, okay?
I will.
See you.
Thank you.
Love you.
Yes. Yeah, love you too.
All right.
Aloha.
Aloha. Shit, Jim Newman in Berkeley, October.
So to start off, I'll just share some concepts and sort of giving a framework about what we'll be talking about. But, understanding is fine. It happens on its own. It's natural to understand. It's also, just know that a lot of the concepts might be somewhat unexpected, just because it doesn't fit with the normal experience of what is considered spiritual.
That is a good-looking man.
Sense of needing to progress.
That's a father figure.
And then we can discuss it.
I wish he was my daddy.
Just know that, although I'll be sharing concepts and, setting sort of a framework and we'll discuss things, really what we're talking about has nothing to do with concepts. It doesn't really have anything to do with anything. In the sense that it's not separate, it's not a thing to become. The experience that this meeting or anything else in an individual's life is about becoming has to do with the illusory experience that there's an individual that's separate. There's an individual that has the experience, it doesn't say necessarily, it has the experience of being in a position which is separate from everything else. And out of that experience arises the sense that this, as it is somehow incomplete. There's a need, an intrinsic need in the appearance, and that's experienced as the sense that I need to become something else. This isn't it. It is. But I need to become something else. What's missing in this, the incompleteness of this, is hidden by a lack, in my experience, a lack of knowing or a certain type of experience. Spiritual realization.
In a certain way, there is so much sickness in us. And so we as people on YouTube or, living our lives to a very large degree may not see or resonate, and we may resonate, but then we're doing that from like this balanced point of I've experienced a lot of suffering or there's a lot of sickness, but this is like totally beyond the balance point. Like the balance is totally lost of the sickness of our relationship with nature, for example. Out here in these Aboriginal lands where they've started this great big mine to mine uranium, which we know is very poisonous and dangerous, and are sucking all the water out of the lake that is a hub for nature in this environment. That is a being in its own right. and we look at the inequity and we look at the history of colonization and violence and waste and our current practice of waste in the world, there's a real deep, serious sickness that is inseparable from this notion of separateness, this idea of separateness. So what I'd say that this is about, the Monk Life Meditation community is about, is not just how we can think about or talk about or contemplate about or practice about this illusory separateness and realizing that, but how can we create the conveyance and the means for us as seemingly separate individuals to be supported by this way of non-separation, or this way of being oriented towards and from nature that is limitlessly beyond laws of countries, beyond standards of living, beyond positions of authority or positions of non-authority. To cooperate with each other, to provide protection, to provide resources limitlessly. And as a part, as a part of the Jim Newman kind of non-duality scope or context or teaching that also goes on here in a much more immatured way in terms of Jim's skill, Jim's way of doing it. There's a presentation here to say that you can be supported. That you are supportable by your alignment with nature or the willing to sacrifice egoism. And that's fine. That's enough. Even with your disability, even with your old age. Not that the whole structure and everything is set up like an airport is set up, or like Walmart is set up, but that principle is here. That principle is on the table. And that we can be overwhelmed, not by our own capacity to either meet our needs or to not meet our needs, but overwhelmed by the efficacy and the value of our need itself when it's concerned with ending suffering internally and externally. That your need is a value, that your suffering is valuable, that your problem is valuable, that your problem is already an offering, is already a gift. And that it's not just up to me as Dr. Rob to, build my ego in a certain way or, try to continue staying alive in a certain way, but that it's the impetus is on all of us as stakeholders in this principle and practice and community to develop our individuation, develop our practice, develop our capacity to listen and resonate to these teachings, not just to feel better or so we can kind of deal with how shitty our life is, but to become empowered and to become individuated, to become as enlightened as possible, not for ourselves, but for everyone. that our practice should not be for ourselves, but should be for and with and concerned with everyone, everything, unconditionally, limitlessly. And then to let ourselves be pulled down the line of that, to be pulled on the string of our willingness to be concerned with helping everyone and everything through renunciation of the notion of self in our way of thinking, in our way of realizing awareness.
Or recognitions or presence or beingness or any of those things, that sort of experience or that sort of knowing, higher consciousness, all of that in those experiences hidden what seems to be missing in my experience. And that fundamentally is an illusion.
That is a beautiful
So,
man.
here are the concepts. This is the absolute.
Now people are laughing. I think in that laughing, maybe there's something, because I've seen, I mean, maybe that's just their skillfulness of being activators. But for me, that is an expression, their laughter is an expression of recognition or realization that then needs to be challenged. And that if you don't do that, you're doing a disservice to everyone. But that's also maybe a little bit stupid, kind of a stupid idea, or a interpersonal idea that's outside of the scope of just giving and just receiving. Because I watched and then also maybe other people think they get it or they don't get it because those people are laughing or screaming or doing whatever. And I think that also can come from a place of privilege and a lack of recognition of need. Anyways, that's just a thought. I'm disrupting the non-duality. But I watched Sadhguru. He had a big thing that, like after he came out of retreat or his first time coming back after his brain tremor, and you could see him sitting up there meditating or, wisping, and you could hear people in the audience screaming and yelling and wow. So it's also tends not be very useful to be critical, but we can explore principles that may come up from what, even the principle of being critical is maybe a bad principle. So the cup is getting to me. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry, Jim.
This is the absolute. It's the absolute appearing or being Aruna in Shaiva's mind. It is whole. It is complete. It is free. It's unrecognizably free. It doesn't become more free than this. This is it. This is it. This is the perfection that's longed for.
This is it. This is a happy moment. This is it. I have arrived at this moment. This is it. I have arrived. This is it. I have arrived. This is I've arrived. This is I've arrived. This is we always wish really awesome. We should be really awesome. We should believe us really. I guess we really awesome. We should be really. I am bong really really awesome. We should be really awesome. We should be really awesome. We should be really really awesome. We should be really awesome. We should be really awesome. You know what I mean?
It's not the perfection that's wanted. The individual, that sense of separation, has a perfection that it can know. This isn't a knowable perfection. It's not a perfection because it has a cause, because it can be brought about. It's an uncaused perfection. It is uncausedly whole. It is uncausedly fulfilled, not separate. That doesn't change. So in that sense, that never changing, that being already the case, this meeting in that way is about nothing. It's not about the individual, it's not about experiences or anything that the individual would recognize as having any value. It's not about that. So, what can happen at a meeting like this is anger, frustration, but because it doesn't speak to that separate individual's need to become, so it can get a little frustrated with that. Now I've lost my train of thought.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Why can't it be both?
Both what?
An alternating, at the stage I'm at, an alternating, sometimes the illusion of higher consciousness and that
Well, it can be
it
anything.
continues,
It can be
plus the opposite, which is
It can be anything.
absolute stillness now, where you're not going on that journey.
It can appear as
alternating between the two.
Yeah, it can appear as anything. But I am not talking about a stillness that is now that I
I know I
recognize.
used the wrong words. Actually,
So when you really blow your brain out of your asshole fully, you, I'm speaking out of turn here, but from what I've seen is your way of teaching or your way of living, and maybe part of our brain can be blasted out of our asshole, and then our life is a teaching, maybe, who knows. But it becomes a poetry. It becomes unconditional. It becomes undesirable. It becomes uninterestedable. And then you have, this refinement of your way of presenting yourself that is coming from this total irrelevance of the notion of something at all. And so some masters, I've heard stories, the ancient Chinese masters, maybe they fucking get off the seat and go to their room. And that would not at all be a put on, but that would be the utter irrelevance of any conditionality, any experience, any situation going on kind of expressed. Like maybe they said to that master, please, you have to, come and teach us. And they asked him a bunch of times. So he said, okay, I have to do that. So he got up, sat there, and then he went and sat back down. And then in that way, there's also a perspective which I know less about, but I've heard a lot about this, where it might be more practical, it might be more like a real wisdom view, but that everyone is a Buddha. Everyone is fully enlightened. They just don't know it. But that would still be about the eyes that are seeing that, the ears that are hearing that, the body and mind that's experiencing that. It wouldn't be about some arbitrary rule or law that is created and assumed up and thought out and put down on paper. So there's an irrelevance given here to everything. There's an irrelevance given here to good, bad, pain, hot, cold, everything.
okay, not the middle, it's a third thing that's neither one. It's neither, well, you
It's
said it's
everything.
not the stillness, so it's neither the stillness nor the journey.
This is a
so
good
it must be a
challenge.
third thing.
This is quite a good challenge. He's really getting Jim here. Look at this
Yeah,
guy.
it can appear as anything. But I am not talking about a stillness that is now that
I know I used the wrong words. Actually, the way I view it is stillness and then the journey, but what you're speaking of.
So this guy's saying, Jim, you're talking about something. And Jim is saying, I'm not talking about anything. Just like you have all these people in a room watching this, I don't know who these people are, but they have an idea that something's, clearly something's going on here. Something's being talked about here, and this something is happening here. And Jim is saying, no, this is about nothing, and also nothing is happening here. Nothing is appearing here. Mincing words a little bit, but that's an aspect of it. The non-duality meetings.
Is something in the middle.
No,
It's a third, no, okay, not the middle, it's a third thing that's neither one. It's neither, well, you
It's
said it's
everything.
not the stillness, so it's neither the stillness nor the journey, so it must be a third thing.
what we're talking about isn't stillness.
Most probably.
And so then you get this element because Jim is trying to say something and this guy's interrupting him. And that's good and all. Or you could imagine that Jim was teaching and somebody's sitting there in the audience lighting up a cigarette. So it might all be absolute truth and everything in the middle, but depending on how you are approaching that context and case that you're in, that's how much value you're actually going to be able to get from it according to the affinities or the disposition of the teacher. The teacher almost never invites people to be somewhere. So it's like Jim didn't write a letter to these people to come and participate, etc. It's just a happening. And so Jim in this is representing it's just a happening, or it's just nothing. So if you have the recognition of that, there's not really anything to discuss, talk about. There's not any question to ask. And since you're there, and there's a speaker and there are listeners, just like your foot either hurts or it doesn't. There's no thinking about it. There's no discussion about it. It's just the way that it is, plainly. And that is also the way that it's not. But you can't say it's this way when it's clearly a add-on to the way that it actually is. And then if you do say that it's this way as an add-on to the way that it actually is, now you're in trouble, especially if you're the guest rather than the host. And these are, somewhat low models compared to just, maybe looking at the moon, because these are models that are interpersonal or interdisciplinary or have a lot to do with things, where the moon is still a thing, but it's irrelevant to itself. You can't grab the moon, you can't taste the moon, you can't see the moon up close with your own eyes. And everything that I'm saying in that sense is just a lie or irrelevant. Misleading. Based on fixation on objects, and even that is misleading. Because there's nobody here there's no here to begin with. Here is just a concept, and a concept is just a concept. Or is it? Let's listen to Jim and figure it out.
preparing for my attack on Vishrant. Don't tell him. Don't tell him I'm preparing. This is very rich.
Yeah, go for it.
Why can't it be both?
Both what?
An alternating, at the stage I'm at, an alternating, sometimes the the illusion of higher consciousness and that
Well, it can be anything.
continues.
It can be
Plus, the opposite, which is
It can be anything.
absolute stillness now, where you're not going on that journey.
It can appear as
alternating between the two.
Yeah, it can appear as anything. But I am not talking about a stillness that is now that I
I know I used the wrong words. Actually, the way I view it is stillness and then the journey. But what you're speaking about is something in the middle.
No,
It's
it's
a
not.
third, no, okay, not the middle, it's a third thing that's neither one. It's neither,
both.
well, you
It's
said it's
everything.
not the stillness, so it's neither the
Well,
stillness nor the journey, so
what-
it must be a third thing.
What we're talking about isn't stillness.
Most prior.
It can appear, it's not prior. It
Prior
can,
to movement.
it's not
or
prior
stillness.
anything. It's not prior. Prior is hope for the individual, that it has a
No,
hope.
most prior is before any of this began.
Ooh, this is good.
The source.
Jim's getting
It's
little
not
bit of
prior.
treatment.
Prior is hope for the individual, that it has
Prior.
It can appear, it's not prior. It
Prior
can,
to movement.
it's not
or
prior
stillness.
anything. It's not prior. Prior is hope for the individual, that it has a
No,
hope.
most prior is before any of this began. The source.
There is no stillness.
Okay. I back off then. I don't see how you could not work with that, but it's okay.
Well, this doesn't work.
It's not my thing, so.
It's not, this doesn't work.
That's the third thing I mean.
When you speak of this model of illusion of being in the world, birth,
Yeah.
what is that?
But nothing.
But there's still an appearance of
Yeah. Which is nothing.
But you say nothing, it's in the sense that it's
Nothing.
not.
Nothing's a really good word because you can't do anything with it. It doesn't give anything for this to do. It'll still make a thing out of it, which it isn't. And it's not left when there's no problem. It's just obvious. It's already the case. That's all that's happening is nothing. This is nothing speaking, it's nothing hearing, it's nothing making coffee.
And nothing noticing
Not
appearance
totally.
and nothing reacting.
Yeah.
But nothing can be done about this stops on its own.
In a sense, it stops on its own. You see, the whole idea that this is actually happening is an illusion. So the idea of something that is
The whole idea that this is happening is an illusion. Jim Newman.
really happening, this really happening, stopping happening, it's just another part of the story.
That's actually mind blowing. It's not even happening.
Yeah. It really is as simple as sitting on a chair in a room.
But even that's not happening.
Not really. Yeah. But apparently, it appears to happen.
Well, why do you say not, you're saying not really?
Yeah, it doesn't really happen. This doesn't have any sort of real context. It's not coming from anywhere and it's not going anywhere. If there is no source.
This doesn't have any real context. It's not coming from anywhere. It's not really going anywhere. But try saying that to your toilet. See what it says back.
It's not the Big Bang, it just apparently is. Causelessly. This is the whole of everything, and it's nothing.
You know, there's a shit ton of eggs.
Well, then can you talk more about how things were appearing and then I guess disappearing?
How?
Like that's just what seems to be happening. This room appeared, people appeared in it, chairs appeared, and I assume in a few hours.
You're talking about it as though it's a process.
Yeah.
But the process is just part of the illusion. There isn't any process to this being what it is. There isn't really any past, and there isn't really any future. This, exactly as it appears, is the whole of everything. There isn't anything else.
So nothing else is gonna appear.
This is the whole of everything. There isn't anything
Oh,
else.
Change seems to happen, but that's just what is appearing as change. It's completely wild. Boundless.
And no one's doing anything, so it's just happening.
Well, there isn't anything really happening, so really doing something is an illusion. But even the experience of separation,
You want to get me something for my birthday? Get me a Jim Newman poster. We got to get some I need a high res picture of Jim Newman. Put on my wall.
It's the same, nothing appearing as an experience of separation. It doesn't have any real cause. And it doesn't, in the way we're talking, it doesn't have any real effect. It doesn't have any effect. Not any real effect. Not one that matters. What's longed for is unconditional love, absence, unknowing. And that's already the case. So in that sense, nothing matters. In that way, nothing matters.
And so all the questions, there's no point to have a question.
No, there's no point.
There's no point.
No. But there's no point not.
Right. But like there's nothing to know.
No.
Nothing to know.
That, in the moment, that seems to be the most beautiful part of the whole thing. What's truly longed for is unknown. I know it's terrifying. I know it's terrifying not to know what this is, not to have a position. But it is the beauty of it being unknowable, which is the love. It's all the whole thing is just an unknowable love affair.
Unknowable love affair.
So there's no why as to
No why.
these thoughts trying to figure stuff out. It just is what's
Well, so if you come with why there's thoughts to figure stuff out, that comes from that sense of separation that feels that there needs to be an answer. And there isn't, because the questioner itself is an illusion.
The questioner itself is an illusion.
Or why or how, light travels at the speed it does, or how to nail a couple of words together, and those sorts of things. But there's no why to this. It's just that need is illusory. There's actually no need.
So there's no why for anything.
No, well, how to nail two boards together, why nail two boards together to build a roof. In that way, there's a why. But as far as to the impetus of the reason for this, why this, there is no why. That's just freedom. It's that free. It's not restricted by any sort of condition such as why.
And you say it's so obvious,
Yeah.
but it doesn't feel obvious.
No, look, it doesn't feel obvious here.
Doesn't feel
It doesn't feel obvious here, it just is obvious. The individual overlooks the simplicity of what we're talking about, the obviousness of it. There's no difference here to there. I mean, there's so no difference. There isn't an actual here and there of any reality of separation. It's just all of it, yeah, without a position. Doesn't help, but it's gorgeous. And that obviousness is overlooked because the individual is a position, a particular point, looking for another position, something else. And so it misses the all, it misses the other, overlooks it. It isn't an answer. The individual has the sense that the solution is hidden in an answer, some sort of knowing or experience. And what's longed for isn't an answer.
Because when I hear it, it sounds like, to me, you're saying it's obvious to you that there's
No,
an Indian.
no, it's the exact, so I'll tell you a story. There was a gym, and then there wasn't. That's the story, doesn't matter. But what was obvious when there wasn't was obvious before. It just was overlooked in the need to find an answer.
I would say you have to be very, very careful about any kind of structure of before. We shouldn't, even in appearing, the appearance of beforing is just like the appearance of selfing. So any endorsement of before is also an endorsement of a thing that could be before. So it's impossible for anything to be before. It's impossible for anything to be after. That's what I would say. But in a context like this, where it's Jim sitting in front of a room, you know, with an audience, with a group like this, it would be very, very unattainable or very inaccessible to say that or to speak out in that way. But of course, you probably could. And Jim would probably endorse if he felt that it was all right. So it doesn't have to just be asking questions or interrogating. Just like if someone came up and bowed to Jim, sometimes people don't take bows very well, and it's kind of, you know, there's an arrogance in not receiving what people offer as well. I experienced something like that I'm not going to go into in Sydney. And Jim would probably, you know, accept that, like he would accept water or he'd accept this or that, you know. But then some people have rules about what they're willing to accept. Like some monks have rules that they wouldn't accept money, even if it was offered to them. But then they may have a kepia or an assistant that can accept it because, you know, maybe that monk has needs, or they just want to meet the need of the people who wish to offer, and they still want to respect their own rules.
So here, something that might arise is, oh, it's always been this way. Nothing happened. But that's overlooked over here in the story because it's nothing. It's not an answer. It doesn't give anything. And when that sense of separation arises, there's a sense of lack, a sense of need. That feels like there's the answer, the solution isn't addition, a gaining. Whereas what's wrong for is the loss of everything. But there is no real loss because there isn't anything happening.
So just like Jim seeming to sit up there and be teaching, whereas Jim would say there's nothing going on here, but there's an accessibility or there's an openness to challenging Jim or trying to get an agreement from Jim, you could also be co-teaching or giving something that, you know, is received. But we'd have to be in a position to be able to do that, because there is a specificism, just like drinking the water that doesn't have poison in it, rather the water that does have poison in it. But there's not really any why about that. That why is unfathomable, and then the realization is the nothingness of that thing, the thinglessness of that thing. But in the midst of things, there's no whying about it. There's no way to explain it. You could say because of subtlety, and when we believe in things, yes, it's because of subtlety, but when we realize impermanence or realize non-thingness, selflessness, interbeing, then there is no thing to begin with. The notion of a thing is impossible. Co-teaching is something that is very rare, and something that I hope to build up to and to be able to facilitate, in the future. I've seen co-teaching before, but done very, very poorly, or very, I don't know, not the way I would imagine it. And I think that there's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of power in that. Two people who are both open to not being anyone sharing together. And then, to what degree are they both open to not being anyone? But at least supporting each other to support others.
Is there a better or worse life or past?
Yeah, there apparently.
Is it overlooked because it's nothing?
Yeah, it's nothing to the individual.
That's why it's overlooked.
That's why it's overlooked. The individual lives in a world of meaning and purpose and becoming. And what's longed for is none of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it has no value.
Yeah. Are there any qualities that it has?
Nothing. Oh, not intrinsically, but it appears as all quality. There's no separation.
So this I would say, there's a truth in what Jim's doing there, but also there's a level of refinement, like the bodies of Buddha, like the Sambhogakaya, the Dharmakaya, which are very, very refined. And some of the maybe issue in this way of non-duality teaching is not really an issue, but this focus on the absolutism of the nothingness, while not accepting the subtlety of degree of realization of that nothingness, just in the same way that you would tell somebody where the toilet is, rather than where the toilet isn't.